that all of the members of the community that night, all the members of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole assembly said to them, if we had only died in Egypt or in this wilderness, why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. I want to talk from this subject for a few minutes on today, and that is a mindset reset. There are times when we have to reset our mindset. Say yes if you're ready for the word. Family, recently I was reflecting on an experience that I had as a teenager. I was in high school having a conversation with a few members of my family, and I was articulating some of the schools I was contemplating attending after my graduation. And one of the schools that I mentioned that I was taking into consideration was a school called Morehouse College in Atlanta. And as I articulated that this was one of the schools I was considering, an adult member in my family immediately vocalized their opinion and communicated to me that you can't do that, and began to list all of the reasons, many of them valid, as to why it would be unlikely that I would attend that school. My father, who was not involved in the conversation but close enough to overhear what was being communicated, immediately interjected and very publicly and sternly said to that individual, don't tell him that. To which they wondered and asked, don't tell him what? And he replied, don't ever tell him what he can't do. He immediately looked at me and said in the presence of those who were around the room, if you put your mind to it, you can go wherever you choose to go. And if you will allow me the opportunity to exegete that experience, I feel like it has value for those of us who are seated in this space on today, because I realized something, family, that my father in that moment gave me more than his facial features. He gave me, watch this, faith for my future. I realized that as a father, he gave me more than money. I realized that as a father, he gave me a mentality, a mindset, an attitude of achievement, a paradigm of possibility, a mindset that was not set on limitation, but possibility. One that believed I could do anything I set my mind to. From Kill-Michael, Mississippi, do it anyway. Population 830 people, do it anyway. High school graduating class, 33 people, do it anyway. No stoplights, one full-time police officer, one part-time police officer who kept the police car in his front yard, do it anyway. And ladies and gentlemen, as we ponder the pertinence of this principle for this sermon today and this series called Bloodlines, I realize something. We inherit more than traits, trends, and tendencies in our bloodline. We also inherit mindsets and mentalities. You could be amazed at what mentalities are passed from generation to generation. Some victim mentalities are inherited. Some limited mentalities are inherited. inherited. Watch this. Some racist and biased mentalities are inherited. Listen to this. Some sexist mentalities are inherited. We inherit more than traits, trends, and tendencies. We can inherit mindsets. And there are sometimes our mind is set in places and spaces that serve us well. And there are other times where our minds may have been molded in ways that they are set in spaces and places that don't serve us well. And this is why evaluation is essential and important, because wherever your mind is set, your life will follow. Proverbs 23:7 says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. God moves us from level to level, faith to faith, head first. And no matter where you may be stuck, I came to tell you today, if you get your head out, your life has got to follow. Am I making sense, family? I said, am I making sense? And I think our passage, our foundational text on today in Numbers 14 is an incredible example of the importance of examining how our mind is set. We picked up in Numbers chapter number 14, but these people's story really begins in the book of Exodus. The book of Exodus introduces us to a group of people that the Bible calls Hebrews, who were in Egyptian captivity for over 400 years, and there was one generation that got sick and tired of the cycle. There was one generation that began to engage in activity that would free them from the limitations of Egyptian bondage, and the Bible says they cried out to God to send deliverance. And God then begins to have a different kind of conversation with a man named Moses. And instead of sending deliverance, God sends a deliverer, because God doesn't always answer your prayers the way you think he'll answer them. There are times when God can answer our prayers in ways that are so different and distinct than what we expect, that the answer is right in front of us and we don't even know he's answered it. Right? They're asking for deliverance, and God sends a man named Moses. This is interesting, because when God instructs Moses that he wants to use him to lead Israel out of Egyptian bondage, the Bible says that Moses begins to communicate to God his insecurities and his inabilities. He says, number one, I'm a background person. That's my ministry. I stay in the background. This requires that I go to the forefront. Secondly, this requires that I do some speaking, and I am slow of speech. There are some commentators that have varying viewpoints on what this might mean. Did he stutter? Did he have a lisp? Did he have the inability to accurately articulate his words? We don't know, but this is what we do know. We do know that God didn't even deny Moses' limitation. He just sent him some assistance. He said, this is what I'm going to do. He says, I know you slow of speech. I'm not going to change that, because that inadequacy shouldn't lead to insecurity. It should lead to dependence on me. He says, you see that issue as an inadequacy. I see it as insurance, because I know you're never going to try to step out and do this without me, because you recognize that without my assistance, you can't accomplish this assignment. And I want to tell you, there are some weaknesses God is not going to remove. There are some thorns in the flesh he's going to allow to remain. He says, because the thing that you feel like makes you weak is the thing that I know is going to make you run to me so you can stay strong. Could it be that your weakness is God's way of keeping you strong? This is he says your brother Aaron is going to assist you. He's going to help you. Now, this is what's interesting. If Moses had trouble articulating his thoughts to Pharaoh, then certainly he was also going to have trouble articulating his thoughts to Aaron. So even though Aaron was a better speaker than Moses, how could Aaron speak for Moses if he couldn't figure out what Moses was saying? But could it be God sent Aaron not just because Aaron had the ability to speak? Could it be that God sent Aaron because Aaron had the ability to interpret? Could it be that he could do more than speak for Moses? He could understand him. Because you can't speak for someone you don't understand. See, when God sends certain people into your life, they get you without you having to say it. Well, you need some people in your life that just get you. Because sometimes you're feeling things and your mind cannot even conjure the adequate and the appropriate words to articulate what you're feeling. You need some people in your life who can give you words to help you articulate what you're feeling, because they get you even when you cannot articulate what's going on with you. They send Moses, and God gives Moses clear instruction. He says, now I'm going to use you to lead Israel out of this Exodus, and I'm leading them to a specific place called Canaan. It's a land I promised to them. It's a land that is agriculturally rich. It flows with milk and honey. I'm leading you to lead them there. So Israel makes their exodus out of Egypt. Moses successfully negotiates with Pharaoh, and the Bible says that in Exodus 13 that God did not lead them through the land of the Philistines, which was shorter. It says he took them around through the wilderness. So here it is. They could have went right to Canaan a shorter way, but that way would have required them to pass through a land that was occupied with people called Philistines, who had giants in their bloodline. Goliath, that David fought, was a Philistine. And God, in essence, says, I know you want to go shorter, but the reason that I'm taking you the longer way is to protect you from some battles and bloodshed that you're not ready for the shorter way. Are you hearing what I'm saying? In other words, he says there are some things you would experience if you went the way you want to go that you aren't ready for, and it will cost some loss, some bloodshed, and some death. So in order to protect you from the consequences of the short route, I'm going to take you the long way. And he takes them through a place called the wilderness. The wilderness was just the route to get to Canaan. And when it's time to occupy Canaan, there's another group of people that are occupying Canaan land that they have to fight. And those people were also giants. So Moses sends out spies to scout out that land, and in Numbers 13:26, it says they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us. It does flow with milk and honey. Here's its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful. The cities are fortified and very large. And we even saw the descendants of Anak there, and the descendants of Anak were giants. Here it is. They expected advancement without opposition. They didn't realize that promotion has a price. That to whomsoever much is given, much is required. They've forgotten that more of anything means more of everything. They've forgotten that you don't get more of what you do want without getting more of what you don't want. They forgot that you don't get promotion without pressure. That you don't get notoriety without haters. That you don't get more of anything without more of everything. Are you hearing me? Advancement comes with agitation. And here it is. They become so frustrated by the fact that they actually have to fight for what God promises is theirs. They become so agitated, so intimidated, they begin to grumble against a man who was the best thing that happened to them. They began to complain about in one season what they had prayed for in another. Are you following me, family? Yeah, so this is interesting. This is interesting. And so they begin to say, well, instead of going, here it is, to Canaan, we good right here. We'll stay right here in the wilderness. It's interesting. Because it reveals to me that even though they had come out of Egypt, their mind hadn't. Their bodies were out, but their mind was still there. How do you know where their mind was set? Because their mindset is revealed by what they run back to when they get in trouble. So their bodies were out of Egypt, but their mind was not. Here it is. They had a mindset of settling. What did they do? They placed a comma, they placed a period where God wanted to put a comma. They dictated what was best for them instead of allowing God to dictate what was best for them. Here it is. Has your body moved and your mind not? A mindset of settling. Pastor, what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, number one, it's possible to settle spiritually. Somebody say spiritually. Come on, say it again. Say spiritually. What do I mean by settling spiritually? This means that a person settles for salvation and not transformation. It means a person is okay being a praiser but not having peace. It means a person is okay being a follower of Jesus but not having the joy Jesus promises. Am I making sense, family? It's settling, and this is what's interesting. This is what's interesting. Okay, when it comes to a mindset spiritually, that's not just something you get from natural family. That's something you get from spiritual family. Here it is. So if I have sat under settling theology, then I'm going to have a settling mindset. If I only hear about the God that brings me out, I'll never meet the God that can take me in. If I only hear about the God that helps me survive, I won't meet the God that can help me thrive. Yeah, if I only hear about the God that saves me, I won't meet the one that changes me. You see, the gospel is not just what Jesus did. The gospel is also the implications of what that means for my life. You see, he's not just the God of John 3:16. He's also the God of Ephesians 3:20. The God who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all I ask or think. He's not just the God of John 3:16. He's the God that told me no weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that rises in judgment he shall condemn. Are you hearing me? So it's possible to settle spiritually and be okay dying and going to heaven, but experiencing hell on earth all the way there. Secondly, we can settle relationally. We can settle relationally. Here it is. When we don't have a revelation, don't miss this, that friends are God's gift to us to advance his assignment for us. And that if you are patient and prudent, God will send friends that add value to your life without injecting and infecting you with toxicity. Did you hear what I said? When you don't understand that, you will be injected and infected with toxicity from people you're tolerating because you rather have unhealthy company than deal with, watch this, the unfamiliarity of loneliness. Y'all missed it. You see, one of the reasons Israel was responding the way they were responding in the text is because they were not accustomed to this new way of living. They were accustomed to Egypt. They were accustomed to the way things had always been. And in order for them to experience something new, in order for them to experience God's best, in order for them to step into the next chapter of God's story for their life, they had to step out of the familiar into the unfamiliar. And when you move into the unfamiliar, you got to deal with being uncomfortable. And some people are not willing to be uncomfortable long enough to let God snatch the wrong people out of their life before he injects the right people into their life. Sometimes you got to take a season to detox. And people settle relationally. Settle for bad friends. Right? Yeah. Settle relationally. Here it is. Settle relationally when they don't have a revelation that God will not only send the friends you need when you need them. Right, here it is. I'm not going to bother this, but God does not compete for space. Right? He doesn't compete. So he's either Lord of all or not Lord at all. The throne of your heart is a throne, not a couch. Your heart is a throne, not a couch. Your heart is a throne, not a couch. Multiple people can sit on a couch. One person can sit on a throne. God is saying, if you got a couch on your heart, I'm not going to sit next to anybody, because that is the place and space in your life that is reserved exclusively for me. Here it is. I won't feel it until you empty it. Right? And sometimes God has not sent certain people into our life because we hadn't made room. People settle because they don't trust God to send them healthy friends. Number two, they don't trust God to send them healthy mates. You see how the air just went out of the room? That's how I know I'm right where I need to be. Yep, that's how I know I'm right where I need to be. We don't trust God to send healthy mates. And I'm not going to bother that, because mate selection is always an indication of the way you see you. And the only way you fix that is to address people's self-perception. Because you can be on the outside and tell a person, this is not healthy for you, this is not good for you, this is not taking you in the direction that you need to go in. But until that person's view of themselves aligns with a revelation of their worth in the eyes of God, they will be unable to act with wisdom and prudence, because you will always choose mates based on the way you see you. So if you think you can't get anybody better, you will stay right there. But I believe, y'all better come. If you will become Ruth, God will send Boaz. If you, this is settling for less than God's best. But if you've, watch this, but there's another layer to this, right, which doesn't just apply to settling when it comes to the meeting of someone, but settling in terms of the quality of relationship that you currently possess. For example, if a person has only seen dysfunction in relationship, then their view of a good relationship is simply a relationship that is not hostile, combative, and dysfunctional. So it could be mediocre. And they can be cool with people, they can be cool with just tolerating one another, because they're comparing their relationship to the chronic dysfunction they've been exposed to. right? But there in the Song of Solomon, there's this picture of possibility for relationships, right? Where it isn't just this ecstasy initially, and then after that there's this downward spiral where we get to the point where we're just tolerating one another. I don't have time to deal with this, but boy, if I did. That is the narrative that's being painted by culture. This is why men are running from marriage. See, that's next month. I'm not gonna. Because if you don't know that, you will take it personally, sister, if it feels like he's delaying and dragging his feet in making the decision, when sometimes it is not you, it is the picture of marriage that has been painted before him on television among peers, and they see people who are married and they not happy. Who wants to sign up for that? Y'all not ready? Let me. Who wants to say, I can't wait until we get together and you ignore me and I ignore you and you talk down to me and I talk down to you and we don't want to hold each other's hand. We don't want to jump in the bed together. That's too much. Let me go over there. I can't. Who wants to sign up for that? But God has painted another picture of possibility. Not just in the initial stages there's ecstasy and then it decreases, but in the Song of Solomon you see this growing interest that does not wane, it intensifies. It is a picture of Christ's relationship with the church, but the book itself allows us to enter into the intimate relationship between a man and a woman. These are real people. It's not just a metaphor. These are real people. This is a man looking at his woman and saying, girl, watch this, fellas, don't you leave me out here by myself. But then it's a woman looking at her man say, wear it again, see what happened. Okay, this. Y'all don't want real preaching this one. Yeah, she said, wear it again. Fellas, y'all left me out here by myself. If I'm telling the truth, man, I need to hear you make some noise in the building. You see this? But we can settle. We can settle. Watch this. We can settle. Remember, the Israelites didn't want to fight the giants in the land. We can settle. Because in order to get that, there's some giants you got to kill. See, you don't get that without killing giants. Giant obstacles, giant mindsets, giant influences. Last but not least, here it is. We can also settle professionally. Settle professionally. Can feel like the window of opportunity for me to use my gifts, talents, and acquired skills in a way that adds the most value to the world and brings the most fulfillment to me. We can feel like that window of opportunity has passed us. We've made too many mistakes, made too many missteps, made too many bad decisions, and so now my life is irredeemable. So the only thing I can do is simply salvage the rest of my life, because what I really desire for myself professionally is unattainable because I haven't done it yet. Then you can end up spending the rest of your life doing something you hate because you feel like it's too late. You can feel like you didn't get the degree when you should have got it, or the certification when you should have got it, or advance yourself when you should have gotten it, and you feel like it's going to take me 4 years to do that now, or 18 months to do that now, not realizing that if you don't die and go to heaven, 18 months is going to come anyway. Like, I can't do that. It's going to take me 4 years. But if you don't die, it's going to take you're going to be 4 years. You're going to be 4 years anyway. So you can spend these 4 years doing something so that when these 4 years are over, you have it. Or you can spend these 4 years doing nothing, wishing you could reclaim your time. Am I making sense, y'all? You see, this is important. There are times where these limitations so impact us, we don't even know we're being limited by something that's imposed on us. It's like, well, people my age don't get those kinds of opportunities. Or people my gender don't get those kinds of opportunities. Or people who lack the kind of educational credentialing that I lack don't get seats at those tables. You can be 100% right. That's just a giant. See, this is the thing. You don't want them to hire everybody your age. That's not what you're asking them. I'm just asking you to hire me. Let me go over here because they yeah. You said you're not asking them to hire or to give the opportunity to everyone who doesn't have certain credentialing. You're just saying, give it to me. So the question isn't, should it be done for everybody? The question is, can God do it for you? Can God make you the exception? There's a word that the Bible uses to describe those that become the exceptions. The Bible calls it favor. The favor of God. When God reverses a trend, when God breaks a rule, when God performs an anomaly, when God gives you an opportunity that is not normally afforded to people like you, do you believe God can do that? Because if not, I'm out of time. You're settling. And I'm telling you right now, settling is a mindset. It's a mindset that is unwilling to fight the giants that must be fought in order to get to where you're trying to go. And settling is an insult to the one that created you. Settling is bad stewardship of a life. Settling is mismanagement of your intellect, your acumen, and your gifting. Because God is saying, if you were going to sit on all that, I could have gave it to somebody else. He said, I could have gave that to somebody else if you were not going to do anything with it. Settling is you dictating your own destiny. It's God saying, I created you to be here. And you say, but no, I'm good. I'm here. The Bible has a word for settling, and when I found it, it rocked me to the core. It's a word that's found frequently in the book of Proverbs, which is wisdom literature. That's where I actually tell most people to kind of start with the Bible. I tell them, you go to the Gospels first, or you go to the wisdom literature, because you're going to be able to see its application to your life immediately. So there's a word, here it is, it's called slothful. I thought slothful meant lazy, right? But there's a nuance in the way the Hebrews understood slothfulness, and the nuance is this: it is a desire for ease at the expense of the will of God. So here it is: the lazy don't want to work. Slothful don't mind working, they just don't want it to be hard. They want ease. So if it gets hard, they don't fight. If there's opposition, they back down. Because they don't mind it being hard. They don't mind working, they just don't want it to be hard. And even if God is calling them to slay some giants, they'll stay in the wilderness because they're not willing to fight the fight of Canaan. And whenever anyone lives that way, it's because they have misunderstood the purpose of their advancement. Your advancement is not for your satisfaction. God is not simply trying to advance your life just because he's trying to advance your life. He's trying to advance your life not just for your satisfaction, but because of your assignment. He wants to move you into Canaan because there are people that you will impact in Canaan that you cannot impact if you don't get there. He wants to, ladies and gentlemen, move you into the next chapter of his story for your life because he needs you and wants you to be an example to show that a woman can do it, an example to show that a man can do it, an example to show that you can move up the ranks, an example to show that you can recover, that it doesn't matter how many mistakes you made, how many times you've made them, that God is the God that redeems your life from destruction. And some people will not have a picture of possibility if you don't do it. What if I told you that that may be one of the ways one of the reasons he wants to move your relationship from good to great? Because maybe he wants your children to have a mindset of marriage that is beyond mediocrity. Maybe he wants them to know bliss is possible so that the next generation is not running from the altar, but they're running to the altar saying, I'm getting ready to step into the best season of my entire life. Recently, I was having some conversations with my teenage son and just talking to him about some realities of life. And those are some of the hardest conversations you have with your children, because when they're young, there are things you can shelter them from that they cannot be sheltered from when they get old. And you feel powerless as a parent because you're getting ready to throw them out there into a world that don't love them like you love them. And when they start getting a glimpse of that, especially when they've been in a bubble, right? When they've been in a bubble, they get a glimpse of that. It could just be mind-blowing for them. And so he was explaining to me some of the stuff and this, that, and the other. I was like, yep. And when he was done, I looked at him and I said, win anyway. I don't know where you came from, but win anyway. And I don't know what they did to you, but win anyway. And I don't know what they said to you couldn't be done, but win anyway. And I don't know if you have people supporting you or not, but I do know you can win anyway. And I don't know who left you or why they left you, but I do know if God be for you, he is more than the world against you. And you may get a late start, but win anyway. Do you believe you can win anyway? You can win anyway. And I like to win. I'm competitive. I'm too competitive. My youngest son gets that competitiveness from me. And I used to play video games growing up. I still play. I'm talking about when I was growing up, I still play. Amen. I got a Nintendo Switch in my backpack right now. I've been playing video games. I know this is my young crowd here. This is my millennials. But some of y'all in here are going to feel me. I've been playing video games since Atari. I've been playing video games since the first Nintendo with Super Mario Brothers. I've been playing since Sega Genesis with Sonic the Hedgehog. All my young people like, just YouTube it. And I remember a few times I'll be playing one of my cousins in this game, Bulls versus Blazers on Sega Genesis. And I hated to lose. There'd be times where I was getting blown out. And I say, I'm getting ready to lose this game. It could be third quarter, second quarter. I look, and I could see when they weren't looking and paying attention. I run to that console. Give my other graphic here. I would run. I could see that they weren't looking. I would run to that console, and give me my other graphic in the back. In the back, can somebody give me my other graphic? I want to press the buttons in the back. Can somebody give me my? This is like a big part of my thing. Okay, there it is. I'll be playing that console. I'll be losing. And sometimes people are so in the game, they're not paying attention because I had a reputation for doing this. Because I was competitive. They wouldn't pay attention. I run to that console, press that reset button, and start the game all over again. Some of you may have some areas in your life where you're not winning. and the devil think he has the upper hand on you. But you came to church today because God wants you to know, whenever you get ready, you can run to the one who's able to give you a new beginning and press the reset button and start all over again. Your reset begins today. If you receive it, shout in this house. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you were blessed. Press the subscribe button so that you can stay connected and in the loop about all that's going on. And if you want to sow back into this field that you're harvesting from and bless the ministry, you can press the give button. See you next time.